addition.
Yeah. No. Just have the PowerPoint. Do I need something else?
About 155 CUP and about 120.
Hey, how are you? Doing all right? All right. Hey, Ben. Ben. Yeah. Okay, Ben, can you close the door? Ben, can you close the door? Hey, Ben, can you close the door? Hey. Thank you. All right, good afternoon, everyone. All right. Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Joe Devlin with the City of Sacramento, with the Office of Cannabis Policy and Enforcement. This is Zara Cruz and Christine in the back, and I think new to the game is Leilani. Say hi. This is her first meeting. Go easy on her. So I heard a really funny joke today from my 4-year-old, or 8-year-old, sorry. What does the gingerbread man put on his bed? Cookie sheets. Cookie sheets. All right. A little levity. So we've been issuing permits and continuing to take applications. We have received about 155 conditional use applications, and in total 125 business operating permits. This slide is inaccurate as of a couple hours ago. We now have 24 storefront dispensaries in Sacramento doing adult use retail. And if you are, unaware, I put that on a piece of paper, just not on the lectern. We are not accepting applications for any of the new storefront dispensaries. Delivery-only dispensaries are the only dispensaries that are currently open for application. None of that information has changed. Cultivation. Is this new to anybody? Because we can kind of run through some of this stuff. All right. Cultivation, manufacturing, distribution. Our equity program. On November 28th, the council adopted what is the establishment of a cannabis equity program for what I will describe as the adoption of or creation of a kind of a small business support center to provide supports and services to businesses for whatever kind of piece of the industry that they need or business. So if someone needs help with accounting or help filing their permit or help filing their taxes, or marketing help, the establishment of the small business support centers really kind of really to help develop small businesses, women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and those disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. The RFP for that is currently being written. I hope to have it out in the next couple of weeks here. I have it's in draft form right now, and if I can finish it out in the next couple of weeks, hopefully it will be released. On our end, the city has committed to providing applicants with either fee deferrals or possibly fee waivers for some individuals, and then expedited permit processing. The other kind of piece to that would be for kind of the private partner who may not qualify as an equity applicant themselves. If they wanted to incubate a small business owner within their property, they could potentially qualify for priority processing of their CUP and business operations permit as well. So hopefully that will be rolling out in the next couple of months. I have delivery registry. So right now, it's not on here, not on this slide, but is it on the next one, delivery? No, it's not. Our delivery-only registry is currently open. If you are properly zoned and have applied for your conditional use permit and have applied for your business operations permit, we will forward that information along to the state. However, the forwarding of that, amounts to local authorization, is a way to encourage people to register and not continue to do this activity illegally, is going to close at the end of February. So if you are a delivery company or know someone who's in the delivery company and they have not applied for a CUP or a business operations permit and would like to continue to operate, I would encourage them to apply before the end of February. After that, their local authorization will happen once they have a CUP, once they have obtained a building permit, once they have completed their build out, once they have obtained a certificate of occupancy, and subsequently obtained a business operations permit. Cannabis parties, please don't have them. Not joking. We continue to learn that because we are the last ones to find out. Sometimes I feel kind of like, like the mom of the cannabis industry. I'm like always the last person to find out about the party happening. But we are aware that they're taking place at the flea market. Our police department is going to be going out there. We're going to be taking a lot of photographs. We're going to be checking for IDs. They may be making arrests. They may be issuing citations. But the information that they collect is ultimately going to come back to me. So if you're out there selling and hoping to apply for a permit, those two things are not going to align very well. So it's pretty much going to, I don't know how to say it other than if you want to be a legal business, don't act like an illegal business. And I know that there's still some happening around the Power Inn area. We've shut a couple of those down, and again, PD is going to be heading out to the flea market this weekend. Okay. Oh, yeah, and on-site consumption, if you do have a permit or are in the process of applying for a permit, or have your state temporary permit, it still doesn't allow you on-site consumption. Still not okay. We have a number of policy things coming to the city council. This is going to be pretty much ongoing for probably close to ever. Undue concentration. In the existing code, there is a reference to undue concentration, and I think what was intended was kind of the application of you know it when you see it, which is the old Justin Stevens test. And I think we've hit that threshold, or I think the council believes that they have hit that threshold relative to a particular part of Sacramento, to the Power in Alliance area. There will be a policy discussion happening in February to limit the amount of cultivation taking place in the Power in Alliance area to roughly 2.5 million square feet of building space, not canopy, but total building space. So if someone has a 100,000 square foot building and only a 10,000 square foot grow in there, it still counts as that 100,000 square feet. But 2.5 million square feet of space of canopy is essentially 10% of the entire Power in Alliance PBID. That's a lot of, and that amount is also, if everyone who is currently applied was approved, it would be right around that number. Labor peace agreements. The state has required any cannabis business with 20 or more employees to have a labor peace agreement. It's essentially a right for organized labor to come in and talk to your employees. It's kind of, in a nutshell, what it is. There's a little bit more to it than that, but 20 or more employees. The council is also going to be hearing, considering their own version of that labor peace agreement, so they may turn that dial, so to speak, in terms of the number of employees. Maybe they keep it at 20, maybe they keep it at 19, or turn it down to 19 or lower, but that too is going to be coming up. We're also going to be adding administrative penalties for illegal cultivation of commercial cannabis. So right now we have a $500 per plant fine. If you are cultivating in a residential neighborhood, you're allowed to cultivate up to 6 plants. Anything above and beyond that is a $500 per plant fine. We're going to be taking that same process to, or same structure to, the policy committee for commercial properties as well. And I believe that fine amount will exceed $500 per plant or be tiered in some way. So maybe your first 100 plants is $500 and everything over that is going to be $1,000. If you're cultivating commercially, go get a permit. Don't really have an excuse at this point. We're going to at least bring forward and begin a discussion around the daily purchase limits, specifically around concentrates. The state law allows for the daily purchase of up to 800 single doses of cannabis per person per day. And I think we're at least going to begin with a conversation around is that amount excessive? It's the equivalent of about 5.5 ounces of dried flower, 8 grams of concentrate. So it's just one of the things in state law that really don't align, and kind of, I think the committee just wants to have a discussion around, reasonableness, and maybe, is that number too high? Totally open for comment and feedback on that. If it's we can't raise it, but we can certainly keep the state requirements. We're also going to be establishing a permit for nurseries. nurseries can sell clones directly to dispensaries without a distribution permit. It's kind of the missing piece in our cultivation plan. And then we have a proposal to limit the sale of butane in these small canisters to 3 canisters per person. It's a similar thing that the county did. It's really to discourage illegal BHO manufacturing, backyard BHO manufacturing. Also going to be discussed in April is going to be the establishment of the micro business permits. Excuse me. There are some kind of nuances within there that I'm not exactly sure how the committee is going to go. The biggest kind of I guess question mark in my mind is the on-site consumption piece, and are they going to limit that? So the micro business permit is pretty easy to kind of issue because we don't have caps on cultivation, we don't have caps on manufacturing, we don't have caps on distribution, but we do have caps on the retail. So are they going to limit the number of kind of new storefronts, and are they going to add on-site consumption? Also in that is going to be the question of adding new storefronts with and for on-site consumption. So the proverbial, cafe, if you will. Again, that's not until April. And then we have a whole bunch of Title V cleanup stuff. If you haven't read the regs at least twice, here's where you can find them again. I will say we've begun we've begun inspections. We have 2 of our code officers here with us today. We've begun inspections for dispensaries. We've begun doing walkthroughs with various cultivation sites and manufacturing sites. And I think so far they're going pretty well. Happy to kind of shut up now and take any questions. No questions? Great. Come on, I even told a joke to start.
Hello, Joe. Beginning January 1st, I started receiving complaints from around the state about the amount of information retailers were demanding from people to come in and verify they were medical or an adult. Since then, it hasn't gotten any better. And what I want to know is, does Sacramento have any policies right now about how to keep track of the daily limit of an adult user without having to get more information in the face of an impending crackdown, the constitutional problems with information at a dispensary in light of federal, it's a Fifth Amendment problem from what I can tell you. And I want to know if there's any guidance from the city at this point about what information is required to make sure you're not out of compliance with daily limits like they did in Colorado with looping, but that we're not keeping information that's not necessary.
So that's a great question. So here's what I'm open to solutions. So here's what I've kind of the challenge that I posed to the dispensaries is there is a daily purchase limit. So I think we kind of have either 2 choices. One, either collect that data, that name of that person, and, customer ID number, whatever form it is, or show me how you're going to, protect that you're not violating the daily limit. And there hasn't been a solution to that. I mean, it occurred to me the other day, like, yeah, okay, we're, just to say it out loud, yeah, we're basically building a database for the feds of everyone who's violated this law. I mean, yeah, that was not lost on me. But I think we have to follow state law first because, God, that's the only thing that's protecting us right now, right? And so I'm open to another solution. I just don't have one right now. And maybe it's, destroying that data, but then the person's got to come in and re-enter that data. Maybe dispensaries want to look at an internal policy of how long you kind of hold that data. Is it, we're going to hold it for a month and then hit delete? But unless you kind of record that transaction in a point of sale system that ensures your ability to not sell to that person, multiple times in a day that exceed the daily limit, we can chat afterwards, but I'm open for solutions. Yeah.
I was just wondering where we're at with the being able to apply for a state permit on pre-registered cultivation buildings. And if you haven't finished your CUP all the way.
So,
Last time you said you had
the question, can you ask that again?
for pre-registered buildings that are going through the process and being able to file for our temporary state permit. And last time you said that
that information, if you've applied for your conditional use permit and you've applied for your business operations permit, that information is communicated to the state. I will tell you, if it's cultivation related, you are not alone in having not been issued your temporary state permit. They seem to have sat on or be sitting on a big stack of Sacramento applications. So the person at the person at CDFA who was kind of overseeing licensing has potentially left. So that may be why the permits kind of have been slow to roll out.
Hello, my name is Joshua Jenkins, and I'm with Lowell Penguin Incorporated. I come today to discuss the core program, or equity program, that has been established by your city, and the failure of protected class businesses to truly be afforded equity. City offices have failed to allow these protected class businesses to utilize the deferral of permitting fees until after the full implementation of the program, a time that is yet to be concisely defined. We believe that doing this only helps to deplete a market full of companies that have been afforded protections by your city council, protections that are in place to facilitate equity. The solution to this issue is simple. Defer or waive the fees associated with these businesses until
You can't waive fees.
Until after the proof.
Sorry. Do you want to give? Do you want to give a speech, or is there? Can you? Well,
without
no.
being interrupted.
We're doing Q. No, we're doing Q and A. I'm happy to.
Question. I'm asking.
Well, can you get to the question? I'm happy to talk to you. Hold on. I'm happy to. Hold on. You're here. You're in City Hall chambers. So we're doing Q and A. So I'm happy to talk to you about the core program that I've spent months working on in length. Whenever you want. But if everyone, hold on. If everyone here got up and read a 5-minute statement, it would take up the entire time. So can you get to the question? I'm happy to answer your question.
It's one piece of paper, a 5-minute statement. I have barely got 30 seconds into it.
Can you get to the question?
My statement, and then I'm going to ask the question that I have, because the statement is regarding the question. So we believe that doing this only helps to deplete a market full of companies that have been afforded protections by your city council. Protections are in place, facilitate equity.
Question or the mic, please.
Okay, we plan on soon applying for the application. Does the city effectively say that they will allow for all veteran-owned businesses to implement the actions of Business and Professions Code 16102, which allows for the actual waiver of all fees associated with the startup of vending of any business that's not dealing with alcohol that is primarily owned by veteran-owned businesses? But you wouldn't let me get to that part. So
well, that's the question. Well, I didn't need the 10-minute speech. I mean, thank you, but so where's 16.102? Is that in the state code? Okay.
Any goods, wares, or merchandise owned by him except spirituous, malt, Venus, or other intoxicating liquor without payment of any license, tax, fee, or whatsoever, whether municipal, county, or state, and the board of supervisors shall issue to such soldier, sailor, or marine a cost or license without cost a license therefore. That's the code.
So if that provision is applicable to charter cities also, because we're not a county, right, and that provisional, that code that you just cited references Board of Supervisors, which references specific to counties. So our counties are state constitutional sub-organizations of our government. So if that particular provision applies to charter cities, the answer to your question, absolutely. You know, anything we can do for our veterans, absolutely. Again, not to cut you off a 5-minute speech, but, I know, but just help me get to yes, right? Like, the answer is yes. Anything we can do for our vets?
Yeah, can you elaborate on the District 6 10% cap that's going to be coming up? And is that a proposal from the Power In Alliance, or is this something voted on that's going to be voted on by the City Council? Where does that stand?
So it's going to begin as a policy discussion at the city's Law and Legislation Committee. And so what the proposal is that the committee will discuss is to limit the amount of cultivation within the Power In Alliance PBID, which is a specific geography, to 10% of building square footage. What that equates to is about 2.5 million square feet of cultivation space, not canopy, but cultivation, building square footage assigned to cultivation. So if somebody has a 100,000 square foot building and they're going to do cultivation on half of it, manufacturing the other half, it would be that 50,000 square feet that would count towards that kind of cap. If they're going to do 10,000 square feet of canopy, but the building in fact is 100,000 square feet, but they've just gone and got a CUP for that whole building, that whole 100,000 square feet would count towards that 2.5 million cap. And to give a rough idea of what that is, if every permit that is in the process right now was approved, that would be kind of at or around that number.
Are you in favor of that?
So in the city code, there is a question of undue concentration. And I think that there are economic consequences that we need to be careful of. I mean, cannabis has been a disruptive economy on a whole bunch of different levels. And the Power In Alliance, I think, concern, which I think has some validity, until it's known, is we issue 2.5 million square feet of permits, and price of cannabis plummets, and half these warehouses are vacant overnight. That's disruptive in a different negative way for them and to the city. So I think it's worthy of discussion. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter what my opinion is. I'm staff. I work for the city, and policy is set by the mayor and council.
Since as you stated, they're almost at that 10% cap now. If everything was approved, why would you agree to a 10% cap, though? Why wouldn't 15% make more sense to let people know who are in escrow, who are working on something now? Because your policy has been, and with residential grows, you need to become legal. And there's only so much industrial space in the city, within the city limits, but then the Power In Alliance is saying, but we don't want it where we are. Everyone has that same argument saying, we don't want it in our area, but there's only so much industrial space.
Yeah, I think that is that's a point that, should be raised at the policy, to the policy committee. I mean, I think that's something for them to consider.
Hi, Joe.
Hey.
How you doing? 2 questions. One is a follow-up from this gentleman. You said that if you have your CUP and your BOP in process, you can go ahead and apply for your state provisional license. The city will go ahead and say, yes, they're in process? Wow. No special document, nothing that we need to show the state. Just apply and you guys respond. Awesome. Nicely done. Number two, if you have your CUP and you concurrently applied for your BOP, what kind of time frame, like I have 2 CUPs that are approved and the matching BOPs in the system, around what time frame are you guys expecting turnaround?
So it's,
That's me?
yeah. Anybody else in this boat? Otherwise, I can have a sidebar with you afterwards. Okay. No one else? Wow. So the challenge isn't me issuing, well, hold on. No, the challenge, no, but there's traditionally how, not this we, but like, this we have kind of operated is you obtain your conditional use permit for whatever it is, gas station. You build the thing, and then we issue you, your business permit, right? So, but that follows things like a certificate of occupancy. So, right.
We shouldn't expect to get our BOP until we're done with construction.
Well, there's a yes.
We don't want to spend that much money on it. It's like our project is not in operation.
Yeah.
We went ahead, got our CUP. We're not in operation. We bought our land. We got it entitled.
Right.
And then towards the end of the entitlement process, applied for the BOP. We're pulling building permits under the MOU that you're allowed to pull concurrently at our own risk in order to close on that property, to really make those investments, knowing we have our business operating permit. Of course, we can't do anything on site until we have a C of O and there's an actual building standing there, but there's a lot of money at stake.
I'm with you. So there's also a timing issue as it relates to the temporary state permit that you may or may not be issued, right? Or that presumably you will be issued, right? So let's say you have one and you got it 10 days ago. Well, the clock has already started ticking on that.
It would be silly to get a temporary permit for a building that's not producing anything yet, so we're not going to apply for our temporary permits until construction's done and we know we have our BOP. So I'm just trying to figure how long from CUP to BOP.
So we can let's have a specific sidebar but there's also people in slightly different situations. And here's what I'm trying to solve for. There are sectors of the industry, such as distribution, that we just brought on board, right? That, need to happen as part of the supply chain. We have people that are registered cultivators that are doing this and have been cultivating.
I remember.
You still have flashbacks, and that are still cultivating, right? That have applied for a CUP, that have applied for a business operations permit, that are doing everything that they can to become legal, but they can't get a building permit until they have had their CUP hearing. And that applies for distribution and delivery as well. So we have folks kind of in this bucket that are doing this that we need to get business operations permits. And so I'm going to hopefully,
So policy-wise, are the distribution and delivery going ahead of cultivation or manufacturing, regardless of when we got in the queue?
No. So here's something that you're going to make me say something out loud that I'm not quite ready to say out loud, so I'm going to kind of choose my words carefully. I need to find a solution to your problem, and I think I'm pretty close to one. There are people that have a temporary state permit, like a cultivator, right? A registered cultivator. They've obtained their temporary state permit. Their temporary state permit is going to expire before they probably have finished their approved building operation, their building permit plans, or certainly have, it's going to expire before they obtain a certificate of occupancy, right? And so that's problematic, and they're not alone in that. So I need to find a solution to getting the industry the approvals that they need from the city in a timely fashion. So, but
Okay, I'm still trying to figure out, though, if we're not currently operating, we got our CUP, and we applied for our BOP, how long is a reasonable period of time to wait for it? Because I'm not going to apply for my state license and have that clock start ticking, because I'll run out, and I'm not growing anything. I understand the folks who've put themselves in that position, and the clock is ticking on their temporary state permit, but for those of us who waited and went ahead and did it in order, it would be nice to say, okay, 4 to 6 weeks after your CUP, you can expect something. So
Well-
not the temporary issue. It's not the state pressuring us. It's not us pressuring us. We just want to know that if we're going to invest millions of dollars,
yeah.
that we're going to eventually be able to operate. And obviously, you can get a BOP without a certificate of occupancy because you're not going to operate.
Well, so that is where we've traditionally done, though, and we've just started to have that conversation of why a non-operating business would want or need that. So
To get your state permanent license. If you're not going for a temporary license.
totally right, and so I think where we'll end up is we haven't historically issued business permits in advance of a certificate of occupancy. And I think there are uniquenesses to this industry that justify doing that. And so hopefully, at the next meeting of this, that answer will have already been made clear to everybody.
I appreciate it. And just so I go back to my bosses and I'm clear, we should not expect to get our BOP until this issue is resolved.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. It's,
A quick housekeeping item. We have 2 mics running today. Jamie's on that side, I'm on this side. We will alternate, so raise your hand, get our attention, and then we'll get to everybody. Just bear with us.
I have a couple of questions. Number one is existing delivery-only places that are not yet, don't have their CUP or their BOP, but are planning to do it. Once they apply for the CUP and the BOP, are they allowed to continue operating because there's a constant call and a constant demand in between? Are we expected to just stop and wait for you guys, or are we allowed to continue to do what we have already been doing? No, I'm not. Our base is not in Sacramento. Our base is outside of Sacramento, but we want to be in Sacramento. We do deliver in Sacramento, but we are not based
So
here.
here's what we're doing for. I'll answer your question this way. If you've applied for a conditional use permit and you've applied for a business operations permit, that information will be communicated to the state, and one would be able to obtain a temporary state business operations permit.
Okay, also on the taxes. I don't see any difference in taxes for patients and recreational. What are the I know in other places there's a recreational side, there's a medical side, but right now I'm really confused on how we're supposed to be doing these taxes with people. All of ours are medical, and they have a big complaint that there is no system set for them to be saving the money they're supposed to be saving with the 25% tax.
So it's 23.5%.
Well, that's what we
But most of the medical patients are not medical patients insofar as for the tax purposes. So in order to be kind of excused from that state tax, you have to have that state issued medical ID card. The physician's recommendation does not get you out of the tax. So in effect, the tax for the recreational customer and the physician's what was the medical customer are identical. And that is the state's 15% sales tax. It's the 8.5% sales tax on top of that.
So once we have all of those things, then we can enforce the differences in the taxes. Once we have the state one, then we can start allowing them to have that lower percentage.
Yeah, they have to have that state, no, not your state permit. They need it. Each customer, patient needs
Right.
that state-issued medical card.
Okay, so they have to go through the state now. So the one that they are normally getting, like at these places on the corners and stuff, are no longer valid, is what you're saying?
They're valid, but it doesn't excuse you from the tax.
Unless it's from the
It
state.
allows you to buy up to 8 ounces of cannabis a day instead of 1.
Okay. And then my last question is on the cottage grows. There was a lot of people doing cottage grows in residential areas and non-commercial places, and they were being permitted to do these cottage grows because other people can't afford to grow or whatever it is that the patients are. Are you guys doing this, allowing these cottage grows still? Where category are they in? And is this under the micro business, or how are you they going to stay alive when they've been growing inside of their homes for these patients that can't grow or don't have the ability to do so? How are they staying alive, and how are they going to be able to accommodate their patients?
You're allowed to go up to 6 plants of cannabis in your home. Period. So if you're going more than that, you're in violation, and the fine is up to $500 per plant, every plant over 6. We've been busting people.
But what are your guys', how do you identify with cottage grows? Because you guys, last year you guys were talking about cottage grows being their own entity aside from being a major grower. So where do they fit in? Where do they go to get, I mean, are they going to have to go through the whole process of paying $16,000 for a CUP and all of that when they're just a very small, or is that going under the micro business? Just curious where to
It could
send
go into
those
the micro
people.
business. You're allowed to have up to 10,000 square feet of canopy for a micro business. But if you're going pot in a residential home, it
I'm
can't be
not
more than 6 plants. And if you're growing cannabis inside of a commercial building without a permit, pretty soon, that's the other thing we're going to the Law and Legislation Committee, is to add administrative penalties for cannabis being grown in commercial sites, right? We have a $500 per plant fine for residential, but we don't have it for commercial. We're going to have it for commercial property here pretty quick, and my guess is that it's going to exceed $500 per plant, or it's going to be in some sort of scale where the first 100 plants are $500 per a plant, and everything over that is going to be more.
My last question is in regards to private events, and you're talking about people selling at these parties or like shows and stuff like that. But what about private events where they're only consuming but they're not purchasing? They're just I guess sampling different people's grows and stuff like that. What if we wanted to have a private event to introduce certain growers and allow them to come and sample, but no sales? Can we do private events like that?
Sounds like on-site consumption, and you absolutely can do that at Cal Expo.
Okay. So we can do private events through Cal Expo.
Has to be at a state fairground, or it has to be at a county fairground. In Sacramento, our county fairground is Cal Expo. But yeah, I mean, these
So if
pop
we wanted to do a
parties
big
where you
event-
take a donation of
No
$100.
If we wanted to do a big event to introduce growers to different consumers, and we wanted to bring them in and allow them to do that, we couldn't do
No,
like a
you can't
private
give.
warehouse
You can
or
only give
something
away
like that?
cannabis. You can only give away cannabis at a dispensary.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh no. And then you still have to pay the tax on it.
We're not giving it away. They're just tasting it. It's like a tasting. Nothing.
Never physically in possession of it. Yeah, we don't have a mechanism for the on-site consumption. I actually think that that's something that is going to change in state law. I was kind of surprised when they drafted it so narrow to only allow it at county fairgrounds, and for us, it's like we have to go to the Cal Expo board. I mean, we don't even control our own fairground because it's the state fairground also. But that's something I think will eventually change in state law either this year or next year, and allow local governments the ability to kind of have on-site consumption kind of areas, if you will. So like Denver doesn't have, Colorado doesn't have on-site consumption dispensaries, where that's the only kind of on-site consumption that has to happen through a potential dispensary here. Colorado has designated consumption areas, right? And so we can't do that. So the proverbial yoga room, if you're a yoga teacher out here and you're the one sending me like the email every week of, can we smoke in class? The answer is no. But Denver has that ability. This is a designated consumption area. You can basically get a permit to have your yoga smoke out on, Sunday morning at 10. But we're not there yet.
Hi, Joe. I'll be quick. But I do have to say one thing about your attire. Last week I saw you crossing 16th Street, and you had this most awesome aqua blue tie. I noticed that before I noticed your face.
I know, and now I
It's
got to
very
hold
cool.
my sweater.
Oh, that's even better. You're a man about town. My question is quick, and it rides on the coattails of the other lady with the CUP and BOP. We have submitted a CUP for distribution, and it's pending, got our application number, paid it, and everything else. We are concurrently submitting our BOP. Can we do that? Will it be received without the official COP being approved?
Yes, so you can turn in your business operations completed, please, permit in advance of your CUP.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if the BOP is approved before the CUP, is that possible? And if so, can that get us a temporary license?
Were you talking to Randy out back?
I know nothing.
So that has not traditionally happened. I'm exploring, let me answer your question without answering your question. I'm exploring ways to solve for the uniquenesses of this industry. I recognize that delivery or distribution and testing are bottlenecks in the system, and if we don't solve it, it's going to become problematic and people are just going to break the rules because it's going to have to function somehow. So we need to create a legal process and legal way for it to happen legally. So I'm you make me say something I didn't want to say out loud. I'm exploring that concept, and it's not just my decision to make, but there are again, uniquenesses of people needing to have that business operations permit in advance of certificate of occupancy, or in advance of potentially even a conditional use permit being established.
Okay. But we should proceed with all the proper pieces that we need to get it in place and just wait for that decision?
That's a business decision that I don't want to weigh on, but they're not sequential. You do not need to apply for your CUP or obtain a CUP before you apply for your BOP.
Okay, that works. Thank you.
I have a quick question, Joe, and you probably have answered it kind of in another way. I understand that over the last several weeks, the city has sent out cease and desist letters to various entities, particularly those registered sites that have not applied for either a CUP or a BOP. That kind of makes sense. You register if you haven't applied and you're growing, that makes sense. I also understand there are folks in the pipeline who applied for both the CUP and the BOP and are pretty far along, but may not have been registered cultivation sites. What is the city's policy, or how do you see those sites? Some of these folks have been told they are pretty close to having a hearing on their CUP. They've gotten questions about stuff on BOP applications, which suggest to us that they're pretty far along, but they were not registered cultivation sites.
And so you're wondering about any discrepancy of timing between a registered and a non-registered?
Well, I'm just kind of wondering if you can kind of, what's the city's enforcement policy with respect to those kind of sites? If they're in the pipeline, they weren't registered cultivation sites.
And they should not be cultivating. I mean, if you are applying for a business operations permit and for cultivation and you are not registered, you should not be cultivating. And we're going to discover if you are or not, when our two code enforcement officers that are sitting in the back walk through. So we did send out cease and desist letters to everyone who was a registered cultivator who had not applied. They also should not be cultivating at this point. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're not registered, you should not be cultivating actively.
So, but code enforcement is still looking, is going to go look at those folks if they've applied, if they're in the pipeline? Can they expect code enforcement to show up?
You're gonna get a walkthrough before you get a business operations permit.
Okay, makes sense.
Joe, on the 10% saturation rate for the cultivation and the power end, is that also going to apply for manufacturing,
No.
distro, and delivery drivers in that same area?
Not distribution, not manufacturing. There is, I will tell you that I think it's at least being considered whether to have kind of dispensaries captured in that or not. I think that one's kind of a maybe.
And how about other areas of Sacramento? Are you guys considering this same thing, the 10% saturation of cultivation?
No, and here's why. Again, we put in the comment of undue concentration, but when you try and craft a citywide policy based, it would almost be. It's almost. I haven't figured out how to write that policy for just the city. We know within this very tight geography, about how many building square feet there are. This area also has like 80+% of every application, right? Maybe even higher, 85. I mean, it's up there. They have almost all of the applications for cultivation for the entire city. I think from here on, they're at the Tuesday night council meeting. Councilmember Warren wanted something to be brought back that was specific to Del Paso Boulevard and that P-bid. We've attempted to refine his request, and as I understand it right now, what he is hoping to avoid is cultivation along the Del Paso corridor, right? That street frontage that he wants to hopefully, reactivate. So something like that may be coming in the future, and I think beyond that, it's just kind of case by case basis.
So right now in the power end area, how close do you think you are to the 10% saturation rate for cultivation only?
For cultivation only, so if everything that was approved that is currently in has applied, it would be right at near that number.
Thank you.
I have two questions. One has to do with the Power and Alliance.
Thank you.
My question is on that 10% that you're looking at. So currently, I'm $2 million into a building right now and 30 days away from our architect being completed on our CUP. So my question is, I'm almost already there, and if you're telling me that there's already potentially a cap on that, then I shouldn't be applying for my CUP or my BOP for that location. It's kind of like I just wasted a ton of money. Without any warning.
So I hear you. So I guess I would just encourage you to complete that application.
And I get that. I just said that's another $60,000. Well, I got in there right now doing demolition. It's just, it's a really hard question to ask. That's millions of dollars that I'm just now learning that I potentially wasted.
It's a hard question to answer also for me. I can't provide, business advice. The committee hasn't even heard this item.
Is there any
right?
way to petition this? For those of us that are that far in?
Yeah. So again, that's the committee hearing process, right? So the committee hearing process is the first step in a policy discussion. The sequence of this particular item, because it affects Title 17 of our city code, is our land use. it was going to go from law and legislation to the Planning and Design Commission. And then the council member has requested that it come back to law and legislation before going to council. So that process between law and legislation in February, planning and design probably in March. I can't remember when they have their hearings. Are they twice a month? Yeah, so maybe in March, back to maybe back to law and ledge at the end of March. I mean, that's kind of pushing it.
But the 10% on that have already submitted their application, they're pretty much preferenced before me, though. So even if I try to squeak in and strong arm my, people that I've hired, then I still wouldn't probably make the cutoff if I still even try to get it in.
So we're not, of those that have applied, it's near, right? So I'll just kind of say that. And the timing of such of this particular item making it to council is probably April.
Okay. My second question is, it's kind of twofold in different ways. I also have a building, it's in a totally different district, and it is a registered cultivation site. It's actually been approved through a lot of the things that we have to do, but it is a rented building, and the person that I rent it from, they signed off, they did everything that they were supposed to do. I have a lease till 2025. He just wasn't smart enough to know what he was signing off on. And now that he is, because people are contacting him, he's trying to strong arm me into doubling the rent on that property. And obviously he can't do that with a lease, but he says that he is going to try to retract my rights through the city for what he signed and released. And I can't find anything that says he can't do that. Because he's not giving an explanation. He's just now saying, hey, I don't want her to grow there anymore. So my question is there a particular place you could direct me to other than my attorney that would say he can't retract with the city once he's signed?
Do you already have the CUP?
Mm-hmm. I'm the temporary waiting in limbo one. Person, company.
That's a pretty in-depth conversation. Off the top of my head, that is gonna be a little difficult to unwind because he's essentially entered into a contract.
And that's pretty much my question is, the city will look at that and say, hey, you signed off on this. Now all of a sudden you realized you weren't charging enough. And now you want to. They'll ask questions, right?
Well, he's kind of already entered into the contract.
Okay.
So
it just didn't say anything. It just didn't say anything on there where he signed that said he couldn't go back and retract his agreement
with the city.
Yes. Yes.
Let's get your contact info and.
Okay.
And I'm happy to have that discussion with our attorney as well. To be honest, had not contemplated that one.
Neither did I.
So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, Joe. I just recently received our CUP from the city, and we applied for our BOP back in August. And in the subsequent period of time, we were contacted by Elizabeth McDowell with the fire department. And during that conversation I had with her and via email too, she reiterated to me and my group that we needed to have our conditions met in order to start operating. And we also needed to get our construction drawings done and submitted to the city and executed. And then when she came and did our visit for occupancy, we also needed to be operational, and that meant plants in the ground. And I was very specific when I asked her if that meant plants in the ground. And she said that she wanted to see all the working pieces and wanted to see it operational, how it was going to be operating, and for her to give the approval from the fire department. And according to her, also we need, in order to get the BOP, we needed the fire department's approval. So it's kind of a contradiction. She's saying that we need to start growing after our buildings, all of our conditions are met, and we've completed our construction, but yet without a BOP, we're not supposed to start. So
Yeah. Are you a registered cultivator?
No, we're not registered.
So I think there may have been a little bit of crosswire there, right? So her final sign-off isn't going to come until like that thing is, until you've built it the way that you said you're going to build it. So
Right.
if you, to everyone in the room, if you have obtained a conditional use permit, please go and submit your building permit.
So we
Submit
did
for
that
your
already.
building permit.
And we're waiting for the approval back from planning department for the plans, and we're going to execute construction. But our construction period is going to be fairly short. There's not very many things that need to be done.
Cool.
So my next question is,
Don't grow cannabis because the fire department was not telling you to grow cannabis.
right? Well, then what happens then when I contact her and she shows up and then we're not operational and she says doesn't sign up on it?
Again, I think there's a crosswire. She's going to come through and do a fire life safety check, and she's going to do it. She was there to look at the building as it is, but her and the fire department's approval is going to be on what you intend to build and what you build.
Got it.
And ultimately, then you can become operational. So,
Okay.
but if you have a CUP, please get your construction drawings done, get your building permit in.
So when we execute all those things and our construction's done, what kind of time frame are we looking at to get a BOP approved from your office?
That part won't be the holdup.
No? What will be the holdup?
Well, you've already got your CUP, and that was the long one. But we will align. We'll make sure to at a minimum align your.
Who's issuing the certificate of occupancy?
That's the building department.
Okay.
Right. So at a minimum, we will align your BOP with your certificate of occupancy.
All right.
There are. Yeah.
So, okay, thanks.
I'd like to speak to the Power In Alliance situation. I fall in that area with my buildings. I had no idea that we would have that come, and we're in the process of putting everything together, and we now would be out. We've got a tremendous expense. So I would ask that you consider or tell us how to work towards a different percentage, because from what I'm hearing today, there are other people in the same spot. To comply with you has taken time, it should, but now they come up and say, we want to cut it off. Tough.
Yeah. So the policy committee that hears this, which is the Law and Legislation Committee, is absolutely the most appropriate place for you to raise those concerns. That is the policy body that's going to put forward a recommendation that would go to the Planning and Design Commission, and then that item is again scheduled to go back to the Law and Legislation Committee before it goes to Council for any sort of adoption. And then the Council at that point could also amend it. Right, so whatever comes out of the Law and Legislation Committee is ultimately a recommendation, but my 2 cents would be to try and do that work and advocacy or explanation as to a particular case at the committee level.
Hi, Joe. Real quick question. I missed this yesterday, but the Sacramento County Environmental Department had a meeting yesterday about cannabis. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go, but I was curious if there are any departments in the county that are dealing with cannabis for the city, or why they would have a meeting like that.
So I think AQMD met to talk about cannabis.
Randy's saying it was only kitchens. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah. So because we're not there are certain governmental functions that only counties perform, and one of them is the kind of the Department of Public Health function. Again, these are kind of constitutional authorizations that run through the state constitution. So if you own a restaurant in the city of Sacramento, the county health department still comes in and says, you're okay. That is still going to be the case as it relates to the manufacturing. So if you build a commercial kitchen to manufacture the proverbial brownie, I'm going to get you a business operations permit, but the county is going to still come in and, and shut you down if they find cockroaches in your commercial kitchen, right? So
That makes sense.
I mean, not yours would have cockroaches in it, but but they still have to. But the county health department will issue approvals for all commercial kitchens.
Hey, Joe. I'm a veteran, and I wanted to make sure I heard you clearly say the BOP fees will be waived for veterans under the subsection I was talking about.
So I didn't say that. What I said was, if that provision can apply, why wouldn't we do that, right? I mean, if we have if that can be applied, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Joe. This is about the live scan process for managers and owners. One of our founders has moved to Colorado, and a few of them are in LA. And LiveScan is a nationwide and statewide program, but we haven't been able to get an answer from your office as to whether we can do LiveScan elsewhere, and if not, if there's a particular reason.
So the live scan is national. I might have to. I wish Renell was here. As I understand it, there's a challenge with the live scan in that if it's not done here, we can find it, but it amounts to finding the needle in the haystack. It just kind of goes into this space. I haven't used LiveScan myself.
Okay, would you be open if we could contact a LiveScan agency and maybe
absolutely
get them to forward it to
absolutely
you? And would I talk to you, or who would the contact person in your office be to mitigate that?
Yeah, we're trying to get our own mailbox, so it's basically all these things just kind of. So your approval right now would go into what amounts to kind of like a giant junk folder in your email. And so we're trying to get our equivalent of our own like email account within the system, so you could just say, mail it to City of Sacramento, .cannabis. So we are working on that, but if you need to get this done, we'll help you try and find a way if we can, like either Christine or Zara, but I think we need to circle back with Renell on that particular item.
Is there a particular person in your office I can email attention to on this?
She's standing behind you. There you go. Christine.
Okay, thanks.
I'm up.
You can also send it to this email address, and we'll make sure that it gets to Christine. But yeah, it should work seamlessly. You think it would with technology, but it basically just kind of goes into a giant junk folder.
Hi, Ray here. I have a number of issues regarding the equity program. Can you hear me? Okay. The equity program. One, we are working to create the California Equity Business Corporation that will work like a franchise to cover all the back office work that these delivery-only dispensaries. I have 10 African-American males who've been caught up in the war on drugs. We got their applications completed for delivery only. My question is, if you're not going to, one, if we submit the application, can we get those waives now, or do we have to wait till you finish your program? Because we're ready to submit now, but because according to this on the application, delivery only fee is $9,700.
Yeah. So not on the fee waiver. So not right now. I'm still trying to get there because there are applicants that are a little bit ahead of the program, and I recognize that. So we're starting to have those conversations. There's a larger kind of question around like the cost of the fees and exactly kind of where those are going to come from. I think more immediately what we're going to be able to do is do the priority processing. So I'm hoping to have that sorted out in the next couple of weeks.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, we can go ahead and submit our applications, the 10-can delivery application, and then have to wait for waivers, is what you're telling me?
No, you have to pay when you submit.
I'll have to pay the $9,700 now.
Correct.
You know, I think the last time I came to your meeting, you guys talk about under the equity program, there's going to be zones that these equity, you got to be under the, the definition of an equity. Have you guys generated those zip codes and zones yet? Because we're concerned that if you have not, those who already approved, if they start to open up operations in those zones that you haven't even identified yet, then that kicks us out, because you're only going to allow so many, I would assume, in those zones. So have you guys looked at that?
Yes. So the priority zip codes were not for the location of businesses; they were for the residency of persons, business owners. And those zip codes were identified, can't remember them off the top of my head, but they're identified through the ARENA process. They're kind of priority neighborhoods. So I can't remember off the top of my head, but they were the same ones that were for the ARENA.
It's on your website?
I don't know if it's on our website. I have to kind of go.
So I can get a follow-up on that. I need to because I'm assuming about 10, if they're priority zones.
But they're not priority zones. Again, so it's like, one of the zip codes is, I'm sure 95815, right?
95815.
Right, which is Del Paso, right? I'm sure it's 95817, which is Oak Park. I'm sure it's probably at least part of 95820. I can't remember like Valley High off the top of my head. But that, again, it's not for the physical location of a business.
Okay, so delivery wouldn't be limited for equity. Because my boys, our partners are doing delivery only.
The businesses are only going to be, whether it's any business, irrespective of ownership, is going to be restricted by its zoning and distance requirements from sensitive uses.
Now, we're only doing delivery, so we're not going to have any products stored. We're just delivering to our patients. We're going to contract with a distribution center that we will buy from and deliver to our patients. So that's how we're going to work that, because I attended the state meeting on track and trace. That's the point. It's tracked throughout, and the distributor is the one that must collect all the state taxes.
Right. But as
so
a
we will be
dispensary,
paying that. So my only question is, for my 10 folks who are ready to go with their apps completed, if they are in these zip codes, we can submit, but we got to pay the $9,700 in order to go forward. Am I understanding you correctly on that?
Correct, right now.
Okay, for now. So they can't get around that.
No, hold on. But you mentioned one thing that I want to clarify.
Okay.
You still need a physical space, right? So you can't be a delivery-only dispensary, which is a dispensary. You can't be a dispensary, in the ethos. Picking up from a distribution company and delivering out of there. You still need a physical space from which to operate out of.
And we could lease, I know in one of the cities, they say 1,000 square feet. So those, what they call them, GPs in Oakland, is a city where they can give you that space. So with our distribution partner, they can give us that space, which will work for us because we ain't got to worry about the security and all that. So they set that space aside for us because we're taking their product and putting it in our space and then selling to our clients.
And they're going to need a conditional use permit different from the one that they already have. So if they have a distribution conditional use permit, there's a cannabis production CUP. It's good for cultivation, manufacturing, distribution. They'll need what amounts to a retail conditional use permit that would be for storefront and non-storefront dispensaries.
And then that space got to go through every other process that a building has got to go through. And if I'm understanding you correctly, a distributor, if he's going to give us 1,000 or she going to give us 1,000 square feet, even though they've already been approved for their space, they still got to come out and inspect just that space they gave us, which is a part of the whole operation. Or am I understanding you saying they can't give us that space?
They could. So what they would need to do is do a modification of their conditional use permit to essentially remove that space. Actually probably easiest just to do it through, I have to talk to planning. You're getting some kind of technical stuff because their CUP also needs to change, right? So at the same time that you're adding another CUP. So it's possible that we would require a modification of their CUP and the addition of a second retail CUP.
And that would probably, you were talking about incubating, would that probably fall into that, where,
Yeah.
you know, a general
Yeah.
is, you know, wanting to incubate?
Absolutely.
They could, yeah. they could do that.
Absolutely.
But my last question, or actually comment, the state's permits, temporary permits, according to the state, is you can still sell from the state side any, like you're doing now. But come July 1, you must have sell that inventory or begin to label the inventory under the state regulations. Now, the problem with that, okay, stop me then. What?
So everything that is sold right now needs to be properly labeled, properly packaged. The only thing it needs to meet, everything that's produced right now needs to meet the packaging requirements, the labeling requirements, the dosing requirements. You know, the only thing that can be sold right now that is not 100 milligrams in 10 milligram increments is existing inventory.
Right, and I understand that.
Right,
Yeah, my issue was just this. You can continue to sell how you're selling now. So if it's packaging and all that, you can continue to do that. It's according to what the state said on the state side, but the cities might have, you know, something else. So that was my understanding, not just, you know, whatever you guys are doing now, however you package it now, the state says you can continue to do that come July 1. Now, after July 1, those who've already got a temporary permit, there's going to be some little requirements, but then they will issue you your permit, your permanent license. Now, the issue we have is getting the temporary license now, you don't have to pay any fees. You know, it's free. But come July 1, you're going to have to pay, after July 1, you're going to have to pay fees. So on coming back to the equity side, we will be penalized if you don't have a system in place so that we can get that temporary license now. Because come July 1, in addition to you waiving the fees, the state ain't going to waive any fees, so we will be stuck paying whatever the state fees are for a license. So I think you guys really need to look at that, because you're putting the equity folks, yeah, you're going to waive here, but it should be a priority to allow equity to go now. And that's why I said I got the 10, you know, business folks ready to go now, and at least write the rules about the waiving part, because the priority is we need to have a temporary license before July 1. If we don't, we got to apply for a permanent license, and the permanent license is going to cost us. So I would hope that you look at this real close, because like I said, I got 10 African-American males caught up in the drug issue, and I had to give them a sell that this is a business now that you can have opportunity with, because many of them were selling on the corner. You know, that's what they were doing. So I'm saying now you can come out of the shadows, but it's like the city is not ready to roll this program out, because, you know, I know you got monies to have, you know, the incubator and all of that, but we're going to do all that for them now. They're going to be ready right now. So I want you to really consider giving those waivers as soon as you can, so that we can be ready to have our temporary permit before July 1 and wouldn't have to pay that additional fee. So I wish you guys could, you know, look at that priority.
Absolutely, I will. All right, so I'm already working on the priority processing, and I'll do my best to get an answer on the fee waivers. I'm sure you know this, but the state temporary permit is free, but it's only good for a length of time, right?
By July 1, you're going to qualify.
Right, but if you had your temporary state permit today, it's only good for 120 days. Right, so that clock starts ticking, right? And so it's only a 100-day it's only a 120-day freebie, if you will.
Right, but then my point is, the equity folks aren't in the queue now. It comes January 1. We got to pay it. There ain't no.
Well, everyone's gonna have to pay it. Like,
well, I understand
yeah.
that, but I'm just saying.
They're not getting the 100. Yeah, I hear you.
We want, because we're talking about the waiver of your fees, so
I hear you.
Pay your fees, we can get your permit, and then go get our license.
I hear you.
So you do that.
So maybe I should just restart this again. My name is Joshua Jenkins, and I'm a 10-year veteran, and I suffer from PTSD. So that's why I write this down on paper before I tell you. And so I'm going to read my second question, which is regarding the utilization by veteran-owned businesses of expedited application processing. Based on state law, these businesses are to be expedited, specifically as stated in Business and Professions Code 115.4. Does the city intend on expediting the processing of applications from veteran-owned businesses ahead of others, given that the laws of the state of California afford the same? Or will we, as a veteran-owned business, require legal relief to utilize this provision with city permit processing?
So I don't know if that particular provision actually applies to the general city. Hold on.
Right, yeah.
It may only apply to the state processing of things, but under what was adopted by the council, it included veterans.
It did include veterans in Type 3, but that was for the deferral of fees, and that was not for...
And in the priority processing of applications.
Yes, once the full implementation of the program is in effect. But the law says now, and is referenced by the Bureau of Cannabis Control's emergency regulations, specifically at Section 5002C5, that the state is already recognizing the ability of these entities that are predominantly veteran-owned, to utilize this provision to expedite them to the front of the line, because while minorities and women should be afforded equity treatment, veterans come from all walks of life. Doesn't matter if you're a woman, man, doesn't matter where you come from.
So the priority processing part is what I was trying to explain to that gentleman, and I think I did, was that like right now, that's the only piece that I have kind of like clear, I think, a clear green light on, right? What I haven't identified is a source of funds for the fee waivers, right? So I can't grant a fee waiver because I don't have any money yet, right? But what I can do currently is for those folks that meet that criteria, I can do the priority processing of the application and the CUP.
Well,
that's the part that I can do right now.
Well, I draw attention to Brooks v. County of Santa Clara from 1987, wherein the court actually did make a determination that it doesn't matter if the code requires that you pull those fees as a part of funding the program. Those fees are waived for veterans because of the Business Professions Code 16102. I also draw attention to the Attorney General of the State of California's opinion, number 09402, in which he stated that as long as it doesn't deal with sales of alcohol, this does apply. And as such, as being that the cannabis industry is coming online, this is the first time that probably a lot of companies are utilizing it. That's why I draw attention to the crowd, because this gentleman right here is a veteran. He should be able to utilize that, and it shouldn't be a secret. The government should have told us that that provision's in there and that they should be included when you guys did your search for the inclusion of veterans in the equity program. You only allowed for a fee deferral for Type 3 licenses, but based on a simple Google search and a little bit of legal knowledge, Business Professions Code Section 16102 pops up, along with case law and supporting opinions from attorney generals that allow for the deferral, regardless if the city council said that those fees are supposed to be associated with the payment of the application of the program. And that was specifically dealing with health. Brooks v. Santa Clara County.
Yeah, I'm not fighting you. I mean, just to be clear, I'm not.
Dealing with the health code and the enforcement of health code and dealing with peanuts.
Okay,
So
I'm not fighting. If you have
me.
information that is going to help expedite this program.
Well, I mean, I just gave you the information. It's on a matter of public record, and all these people now know, so they can also be informed as well. And so if we've got to listen to beautiful waves down here talking for 15 minutes about how carbon fiber and we can get cannabis worldwide, then you got to listen to me make my statement that I wrote down because I have a disability. That's fair. That's my accommodation for having a disability.
Okay, well, I apologize, and I thank you for your service. And I was the one who put veterans in that program, just for the record.
I was the one who requested that to be. I believe that the September stakeholder meeting, I was the one who specifically requested that to be included in the better program.
Sir, it was already in.
But it wasn't, because on September I had to ask the question. If it did, then I wouldn't have asked the question. Thank you.
Thank you for your service, and absolutely, and that was the intent of including. If there, if there are ways to defer the fees or waive the fees, there's also still Proposition 26, so I'm going to be interested to see how those business and professions codes kind of link up with Prop 26, which says we can't actually waive a fee, right? So you actually have to pay for the fee. So I can't actually waive a fee. I have to find money to pay for the fee,
Well, I mean,
right?
Providing the money is not the concern. It's affording the ability of veterans to defer or to actually be exempt from the fees per law. That's a you problem, not a me problem. The me problem is that veterans are entitled to equity per law, and how your department figures out how to do the controlling, that's on your department. But at the end of the day, veterans need to be placed above others. They need to have the advantages, because while everybody else was here, working on business and doing that stuff, those 1%ers were on the front lines defending your right to have those businesses in the first place.
I completely agree.
To laugh and to shut me down, and you have not interrupted certain people from talking, but yet you interrupted me. That really shows a lot about how you view veterans. And the fact that I even have to sit up here and defend myself for reading off of a piece of paper as a medical accommodation, that's absolutely absurd.
No, I asked you to get to your question, sir. That was the only thing that I did ask. And
you didn't allow me the opportunity to elaborate on my statements, which you did. And I think that we all have the recordings of that to be able to do that.
so, again, thank you very much for your service. And if there's a way to waive that fee or defer it, absolutely going to do it. Absolutely. If we can do that faster, if there's a provision in there that allows us to that kind of circumvent Prop 26, which is what we've been operating under, which is we can't actually waive fees, and I don't have the funds allocated to pay down the fees, so I don't have a fee waiver to issue because I don't have the funds to actually waive the fee yet. So, but if there's a provision that allows to do that, absolutely. I am absolutely not fighting on you on this one. Absolutely.
The only reason that I even stood today was because 2 weeks ago when I was in your office asking the same question that this gentleman asked about the deferral of fees associated with utilization of the equity program, we were told that we couldn't utilize that program until its full implementation, a time that's yet to be concisely defined outside of quarter 2, 2018. So therein lies the issue. It's simple.
Well, and that still may be the case, right? So that still may be the. So it still may be the case. I need to complete an RFP. That RFP needs to be issued. That RFP needs to be responded to. That RFP needs to be awarded, right? In terms of like the Small Business Support Center and
the fee deferral is outside of the Small Business Support Center. Those are two separate issues in that core program utilization. They're in two separate sessions.
Those are.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Hold on. But there's also another. I'm hoping that the code section that you reference is that simple, because the other challenge that we have around paying down the fees is I actually potentially have to award the RFP and then give funding to the contractor to administer this program to turn around and pay the fees back to the city. I'm hoping it's that simple, right? But
I mean, I understand where you're going there, but what you're saying still is that somebody has to pay for it outside of the city in order for a veteran to be able to utilize it. That violates Business and Professions Code Section 16102 and the opinion of the Attorney General and the supporting case law from 1987 in the County of Santa Clara.
Well,
that's all I'm trying to do is draw attention to it. I tried to go meet with your office 2 weeks ago, and I wasn't. No one here greeted me. You guys were in training, understandable. But I was told to call back in a month or two. That's not acceptable. This is a time-sensitive thing, and the equity treatment of individuals is every second that goes by that the city of Sacramento does not afford equity to those minority applicants, women applicants, and veteran applicants. They're doing a disservice to the community.
again, I'm not fighting you on this.
Okay, fantastic. I'm happy we're on the same page.
You know.
I mean, I'm just saying it for a matter of public record because that's what my company said me to do.
Again, I'm not fighting you on this. I'm hoping that business profession code is that clear and simple and allows us to circumvent Prop 26 because it is not. It's not as. at least it hasn't been this far as simple and clear cut as just that. And if it is, absolutely, let's do it. You know, absolutely.
Hey, Joe. Anthony Vasquez. Just wanted to change the topic a little bit. For the people that are cultivating in the Power In corridor and may be excluded out of that area, I've got 4.2 acres of ag industrial land in District 2 off of Morrison, and I would like to partner up in an equity program or partner up with somebody or just sell the property outright. And my real estate agent is Deanna Garcia.
All right, no advertisements either.
Hello, Joe. Thanks for your time today.
Has anyone seen the but kind of along those lines? Has anyone seen the equity kind of partnering website from Oakland? Has anyone used that? Anyone? Have you seen the Oakland's website?
Yeah, I'm dealing with Oakland.
No, but have you used their website yet? The one that's kind of like match.com for
it has the whole map. Like in Oakland, they are opening only 4 more.
Yeah, no, but have you used their no, not the map. It's like Match, where it matches kind of.
Yeah. We're getting calls now from the GPs, having meetings with them, so they match up.
Okay.
An equity person.
Okay.
And Oakland is very strict on that to say, hey, if you match, one, you better make sure you get the equity person, but 2, if you match up with them.
Do you like the website though? Because I'm thinking about using that.
You thinking about using that? Yeah, that'd be great because that helps. We get calls and emails from all of them saying, "Let's meet." Let's meet because the city clearly said if you do not get matched up with an equity partner, it's highly unlikely that you will get a permit.
Yeah. So I'm looking at that website.
Good. Yeah. Great.
Moving on. I have a question about co-location. It might be an answer that can only be given on a case-by-case basis, but some general information would be appreciated. So for delivery operators that are co-locating, will they need a separate entrance and lobby as well as a transportation area?
For delivery. So so the answer is yes, but it's going to have to be taken on a case-by-case basis, right? So they each need their own premise, right? However that's defined. So it's going to be specific to the building and location and how that building is set up. And do you need, if they're kind of shared restricted access areas, who's managing those, right? Is there one kind of master tenant, right? Because someone is ultimately going to have to be responsible for a building like that and kind of, controlling for that. So it's going to be probably pretty specific to.
Okay, that helps. Over here, Joe. Okay. Joe? Over here.
Hi, I had a question about the MMIC program. So I understand, because we are gearing more retail, that this will be the only way that patients can be exempt from the additional tax. But the program isn't very user-friendly. My question is, in order for a primary care doctor to recommend that cannabis is good for the state program, they're federally mandated, though, and cannabis is still federally illegal. So I guess my question is, how would that be handled? You guys made the rule.
No, I mean, you're talking about the medical card?
Yes, for a state-issued medical marijuana card.
Yeah.
The only way that my patients can get that little, 15% bump off is to go to their primary care doctor, and then the state of California, which only operates 2 days a week by appointment, and it's over $100-something. So for people that are in a lower socioeconomic status, our homeless and our vets who don't even have insurance, how could they ever get this card?
Yeah, I'm not saying that particular state law is fair. We don't have any discretion over that. I mean, I can put that in the bucket of things that we can maybe talk about in legislation that needs to be changed.
Joe, we have an audience member who can help.
It's not the 15% that you get removed for a medical patient. It's the state tax, the state regulars, 8%, 8.5%, whatever that is. That you still have to pay the 15% as a patient. It's only the sales tax, not the excise tax, that gets waived.
So then my point is that medical patients are continuing to be punished.
And the maximum fee is $100 at the health department.
Yeah, and I think it's also annual, right?
There's also a low-income waiver. So I think it might be $50 cap for a low income, and then $100 cap for everyone else.
Primary doctors are not going to recommend cannabis.
No, any doctor in California can recommend cannabis.
I would love to meet one.
No,
They
there's
will not.
You can Google
There.
it. Just
Okay,
Google
I'm done.
medical cannabis doctor.
Hi, Joe. I have a question about nursery operations. So my understanding right now is that the city's processing those under the cultivation license. Is that correct? And I believe I saw in your earlier slides that you're working on specific regulations along with the macro business and distribution. So my first question is, to the extent that a nursery operation has applied for a BOP under cultivation operations, are they going to be able to leverage those prior submitted applications as far as fees paid, approvals, what have you?
Yeah, I think the short answer is that, we'll see how your kind of timing works out and maybe what you want to do, and if the city council approves. Let's start with that. If the city council approves it, or not. But we'll find a way to figure something out. If the council adopts a nursery requirement and you have yet to obtain your business operations permit for cultivation, and you want to do it for nursery, we'll figure that out.
Okay. And then a follow-up question. So the state's allowing nurseries to basically deliver directly to retail operations through transport-only distribution license. Is the city going to tackle that issue? And is it on the city's radar as far as...
Say it one more time.
So the state regulations currently allow a nursery operation to deliver directly
Correct.
to a retail application.
Correct.
So they don't have to operate through a distributor. Is that on the city's radar, and will they tackle that issue as far as a local permit too?
Well,
Whether that is going to be required locally to have
It'd be
a
the
separate
same.
distribution license?
It'd be the same. So
Okay.
those administrative privileges as specific to a nursery. So yes, to answer your question in a nutshell.
Thank you.
Hey, Joe, getting back to the power in cap, you mentioned a couple things I wanted clarification on. You were saying it's for cultivation only, so if a property has a cultivation license and then in the front part of the unit they have delivery only, non-retail, does that not fall under that, what they're trying to cap on?
It is retail. So delivery is retail. It's just non-storefront. So
I mean, you have two different licenses, though.
Yeah, so the cultivation portion of that building would apply to that proverbial cap.
Okay, and then you were kind of hinting to the one lady to get your CUP, everything in as soon as possible. My understanding of your timeline is they've did their first request. Now it's going to go to the meeting on the 23rd of February. Then it's going to go back and forth. So the earliest the city council would probably vote on it would be sometime in April. What happens at that point if you now have close to 12% of the Power In Alliance that has their application CUP already in, and I can't see the city saying, hey, now we're going to, because somebody's been held up for whatever reason, they lose a spot to somebody who's put it in?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So the planning department, not to duck it, but the planning department is the one that manages that particular process. I mean, my, I guess, advice to you would be to kind of make your situation known to the committee, and kind of hear what they have to say. I think no one is looking to be, I think, unfair or punitive in any way.
Wouldn't putting a cap on something that, without giving notice, any kind of notice as far as people that are in escrow, people that are now submitting their CUPs, but then we're going to go back to possibly even November of last year and say, okay, that's where the cutoff was because we're bringing up this arbitrary 10%. And I plan on being at the meeting. I mean, I don't have a problem with that, but
I think those are policy issues for the committee and not for me. I understand. I clearly understand.
Don't
your
you make a
concern.
recommendation to the committees though?
Not on this particular issue.
Okay.
Right? So this particular issue is coming from our planning department.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Joe. So we're co-locating with the manufacturer. We need to have a separate lobby and entrance. Can we have a shared break room and bathroom for both businesses in a common area?
Off the top of my head, I don't see why that'd necessarily be a problem. Again, I'd want to look at your floor plan, and my advice to be look at those restricted access areas and kind of where they connect to and what they lead to. Okay. Right? Just you want to make sure that you're managing those restricted access areas.
We'd have to have some sort of lockable door between the two businesses, between the common areas?
Probably, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi. I have a question about the delivery-only dispensary registry. So if I was to close on a property on February 27th and start delivering on that same day, would I be okay for the registry?
You need to apply for your conditional use permit and apply for your business operations permit prior to the end of February.
So as long as I start delivering before February 27th?
As long as you have applied for your conditional use permit and applied for your business operations permit.
Okay, so it doesn't matter when I start delivering, or as long as I put those applications in?
As long as you've applied for your conditional use permit and applied for your business operations permit.
Thank you.
Don't ask me if you can deliver, please.
Hello. A couple of questions. First, are any other areas considering a cap, or is it just the Power In Alliance?
It's just the Power In Alliance area right now.
Okay. And then my next question is, will the city consider CUP applications that are within 600 feet of a daycare, not K through 12, but specifically a daycare? I believe the state law defers to the local jurisdiction on that, correct?
Correct, and we don't have a hard line for that, and it's ultimately going to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. And just to your other point about anything else being considered, Councilmember Warren expressed a desire for something similar to come back that would prohibit cultivation along the Del Paso Boulevard corridor.
On the pre-registered, since we can go ahead and apply for our temporary state permit, can we go ahead and apply for our temporary distribution permit if we go ahead and submit our BOP application now, or where are we at with that?
So you need to apply for you have for cultivation. So you need to apply to modify your conditional use permit.
Right, but I was told through the CUP the only way to do that was to wait till after our hearing, which we just had this week. Otherwise, we'd have to pay a whole other resubmit fee. So he said wait till after your hearing, and then you could just basically add it on, and it would be an internal decision versus.
So it would at that point, right? So it would be a minor modification
Correct.
of your So if they're telling you that, I mean, generally our planning department is pretty good about telling you how to navigate this process. Yeah. So if you provided.
So we had our hearing Tuesday.
So you've already had it, right? So
yeah,
they'll
we
render
we're
a
just
decision,
waiting for her the decision,
and then you'll
we
turn
can have
around
it.
and it would be a minor modification, staff level review to add delivery or to
And
add
then
distribution.
we do that, and we go ahead and pay for the BOP application for the. Then would be able
Once
to,
you apply to modify it, you can apply for the BOP.
and then we can apply for the temporary state license from that since we're pre-registered, or no?
Once you have applied to modify your your CUP for add distribution and applied for your distribution, you can then go ahead and apply for the state.
Perfect. Okay, thank you.
And I just want to say before everyone gets out of here, I have the utmost, deepest respect for all of our veterans. I spent a year in Iraq working for the multinational Corps Iraq, risking my life every freaking day, and I have the utmost respect for all of them. So.
Hi, I just had a quick question in terms of for manufacturing.
say a manufacturer is going to provide samples to a dispensary. How is that allowed? Is that not allowed?
I don't think it is. And you can't provide samples at the dispensary, I don't think anymore. I think the
like,
rule
new
is
business?
a dispensary can give kind of medical, but to medical patients only, but then they still have to pay the tax on what amounts to kind of the value of the product.
Well, it's more of providing it to, say, the shop owner or their employees to test our product for new business.
Yeah. Anybody, Kimberly? Anybody?
It's just selling it for like $1 as a kit. The state, they're still going to tax you on that. They're going to tax you on everything. So everything that you sample out.
Yeah, because I was thinking in terms of track and trace too, how that would.
Yeah.
Would that be more better to, like, with a delivery, I mean, a distribution service to apply for that as an add-on?
Yeah. Right. And the distribution company is how your product is going to end
Right.
up at the dispensary.
Right.
And you can self-distribute, obviously, but
But for in terms of new business, how would we, if it wasn't,
if there's one thing you all are good at, it is finding loopholes in every law and regulation that has been written. So you're asking the wrong guy. Come on. I'm usually the one trying to patch the loopholes that you guys create. Yeah, I don't know. Salt for a penny, I guess. I mean,
I want to talk to you about the Del Paso corridor. Is that just storefront on Del Paso Boulevard itself?
so this is kind of relatively new, and I think if you want real specifics, you're gonna have to try and talk to the council member. But it is my understanding of what he is attempting to do. He is attempting, as I understood his direction, it was to come back with an ordinance or a resolution through the Del Paso PBID area that would prohibit cultivation along that corridor, because it is his intent. He wants storefront activity. He wants people. He wants open shops. He wants businesses, and cultivation is just not that.
Yeah, and I talked with him about that before, but I didn't realize it was limited to cultivation. So is it, I know you don't know with certainty, but is it your understanding that were a dispensary to relocate over there, that would be acceptable, but not cultivation? Or you want me to?
That is some conjecture that I'm not going to make. I mean, that is an absolute good question for the council member. My understanding, from what he has expressed from the dais now on a couple of times, is that what he wants along Del Paso Boulevard is activity. And I believe he has even stated that he would be okay with a dispensary from the dais again. But you would absolutely want to circle back with him directly. I think while he said cultivation, I think he may have the same issue with manufacturing as well. Again, it's just not a retail function. I think
People aren't going in and out. Got it.
he wants retail back along the Del Paso corridor. That was kind of like my overarching kind of takeaway from what he said. But as to specifics, check with him.
nobody else has questions? Okay.
Yay, fun. Hey. Sorry. Yeah, no worries.
Oh,